Welcome everybody, I'm John Wally, and today we're going to be talking about integrations. So one of the first places we want to start is with Security Center. So we'll be going from Tenable OT Security, integrating it with Tenable SC or Tenable Security Center so that we can really enhance our ability to do reporting, getting good dashboards, and even some analysis that goes beyond the capabilities of Tenable OT alone. So let's go ahead and jump in. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go over and I'm going to log into Security Center. And if you're not familiar with Security Center, it really is like an on-prem vulnerability management system that's used for enterprise environments. So that if you're familiar with Nessus and the Nessus scanners and agents and those sort of things, all of that data is really looked at and done. All the analysis and reporting is done out of Security Center. Well, one of the tools that Security Center can also report on and really do the analysis on is Tenable OT. So integrating those really kind of drives a deeper dive or a deeper understanding of the data that we're getting from Tenable OT to help us make better risk-based decisions. So I'm going to go ahead and log in here. And I'm going to draw your attention that I'm using the admin login. Now in Security Center, there's two different types of logins that you use, and I'm not going to do a lot of teaching around Security Center. We'll do a whole nother series on Security Center at some point, but there are some basics you need to understand. When you log as an admin, it's more like you're the administrator of the system, but you'll never see any vulnerabilities, for example. When you log in as a security manager, you'll end up seeing different kinds of vulnerabilities. So one of the very first things that you have to do before you can integrate anything with Security Center is you're going to have to go in and set up somewhere for that data to go. Now, this is true for scanners, for agents, for any of those things that you're going to have a container for that data to be stored. So that's what we're going to do here is we're going to go down and we're going to click on repositories. These containers are called repositories, and we're going to add one. And you'll see as we click add, it's going to give the ability to create several different kinds of repositories. Because of the way Tenable OT works, the way that it captures data, it gives each asset a unique identifier, much like an agent does. So for that reason, the type of repository that Tenable OT uses when it's talking to Security Center is an agent-based repository. So we're going to go in and click on agent, and we're going to give it a name. We're going to call this something like ICS data. And we're going to say it's within our current organization of Inc. Labs. We're going to keep our trending for this for 30. I don't want to get into it too deep in this, but your trending is how long do you want to track something? What are your SLAs? How long did it take you to close it out? Those type of things versus vulnerability data, which you can see is set as a year. That's actual vulnerability will be tracked for a year in the system. So I'm going to submit. And now we have our first repository here that we can connect to. So I'm going to check the little box here and you'll see some options come up, and I'm going to go view this. I'm looking for this ID number. So this repository that I just created has an ID number of 5. This is important. You're going to want to write that down somewhere. All right. So the next thing we're going to want to do is create a user that's going to be able to use basically an API call and log into Security Center so that it can push the data up. And that's the way that connection works. It goes from Tenable OT and gets pushed up to Tenable SC over API. So it doesn't have a tunnel or anything like that. It literally it's an API post, and it'll push that data into Security Center. So let's go to users, and I'm going to go add a user. And I'm going to call this user something different than a regular administrator. I'm going to call this role as a security manager. And I'm going to tie this to the organization of Inc. Labs again. And I can put in names and that sort of stuff. For this, I'm just going to do something like OT admin. I'm going to give it a password. I'm not going to make them change it when we go in. I'm going to scroll all the way down, and everything's good here. I'm going to hit submit. Now the first thing you'll notice, I just added this user and that user did not show up in here. That's okay. If you go to organization, you can go to Ink Labs, we can hit apply, and you'll see that that OT admin account did show up here. All right, so that's all we have to do right now in Security Center. So let's go over to our Tenable OT instance and let's go ahead and start working on that integration. So now that we're logged in, I'm going to go to my local settings and I'm going to go to integrations. I'm going to go over to add integration. I'm going to select that I want to work with Security Center. I'm going to click next. And then I got to give it an IP. So my IP for Security Center is 10.3.40.102. And I got to give it a username. We made that OT admin. Got to give it the password, the repository ID, and how often we want it to update. By default, it's at 6 hours. I can say I want it to update every hour. I'm going to go in and test my connection to make sure it's good. We see that we successfully connected, and then we can hit save at the bottom. All right, so we should be in good shape here. I'm going to close these notices out. I'm going to click here, and I'm going to go to actions, and I'm going to tell it to go ahead and sync. And this will take a minute or two to go through and sync all the data up that we have in Tenable OT up to our Tenable Security Center. And you'll see our sync was now successful. I'm going to go back over to Security Center just to make sure that everything is good on this side. I'm going to go into my repositories and I'll look to see that I have my data here. So this is good. And now all of a sudden it went from 0 to now we have a vulnerability count of over 2,000 and we have over 362 devices. All right, so let's take a look at this vulnerability information and why this connection is so good. So I'm going to switch accounts over from an admin account. I'm going to switch over to a security manager account so that we can see what this data looks like. Now I have a dashboard here that's getting started with Tenable OT. If that's not in your Security Center area or your dashboards, that is one that you can download as a template. And now I can grab some information. I can see operational risk ratings, VPR summaries, like what are the big things that I need to close out or fixed. I can see assets by criticality rating, or I can go look if it's in a running status or a fault status, or what is that controller at. I can see my assets by type, whether they're an IT-based asset or an OT-based asset right here on the page. Now there's some other things we can do over on the reporting side. If I go into reporting and reports, you're going to see something very similar. Now I haven't added my special report yet for OT, but I'm going to go in and say add. I'm going to look for Tenable OT and do a search. And you'll see I have an operations report or an executive report. I'm going to click an executive report here, and I'm just going to hit add. Now we can go in and grab our same executive report, and we can say, hey, we want to push this one and run it. So if I select this, I can say launch the report, and then you'll see under the report results, it's starting to load these up. Now, while this is loading and while this is going forward, we saw our dashboards. Let's look at analysis. So if we go into analysis and vulnerabilities, this is going to give us a lot of information. So let's go to our vulnerability summary and clear all of our filters out. And now you'll see we have a lot of information that came up from our Tenable OT. So let's say that we have a Rockwell automation or we have an improper access, those sort of things in here. You'll notice that our plugin IDs are all 500,000 and something. And that's how you'll know also that this is a Tenable OT plugin. It'll always start with this 500,000 range, all the way up to 500,999. So let's take a look at a couple of these because this is going to look a little bit different for us. I'm going to drill down into each one of these, and it's going to give us some information. It's going to give us a description. It's going to tell us how to remediate it. It's going to give us links that are out there. It's going to show us what we got from Tenable OT, We picked up what family, what model, what version. And then we'll have even more detailed information over on the right-hand side, like exploit information, plugin information that's out there, VPR ratings and why they are what they are. So this gives us some ability to go a lot deeper. All right, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go over and I'm going to sort these so they can get these in order. And I'm going to say that I want my plugin ID. So I'm going to go to plugin ID and I'm going to say 500,000 through 500,999, and we're going to say apply. All right, so now you'll see we have some basic controller information. And the reason I put these in order is a lot of times people ignore the infos, and I wanted you to see these. So why would I care about these? They're just informational. Well, if I go click on this 500,012, and now I'm going to get this out of the way real quick, and I'm going to show you I can do this drop down and I can say just by IP, and it's going to show me all my Rockwell controllers. So that's kind of the first piece. The other thing I can do here is if I don't want to do it this way, and I want to go back to my vulnerability summary, if I go down a level, I can look at each one of these assets. And when I look at them, I get a lot of data about this asset. So then I could go in and say, hey, I want a device type of HMI, or I want an HMI that only has firmware version of this. So I could go in and do something like this. I can copy. I can go over to my analysis. I can go and add and customize and get vulnerability text. When I go into the vulnerability text, I can put in here that I want it to only be for this firmware version. I can hit apply. And now when we go look at this and I do by IP summary, I only have one of those controllers that are on that firmware version. So it gives you the ability to look through, see how many of the devices you have, how critical they are, those sort of things when you're working with Tenable Security Center. So if you have any questions, put them in the comments below. I watch those all the time. Thank you for joining me on this video, and I hope you have a great day.